put yourself in a position where you can hear what needs to be said to you. Because if someone says, like, I'm a great coach, but I can only coach people who are coachable.
Welcome everyone back to season 2 of the Untrapped Entrepreneur Show. You may recognize this guy kinda, sorta, because he's got sunglasses, a beanie, a coat, and he's got some mountains in the background. That's like that's not a Zoom background. It's a real deal. I've got Nick Kennedy back from season 1. For those of you that are not watching on video, you've got to go to YouTube and watch this. So this is what true untrapped entrepreneur looks like. So Nick, welcome back to the show. We're going to talk about marriage today. Are you ready for that?
Ben, I have spent more money on marriage counseling than almost anything else in my life. So I'm ready to talk about marriage. And yes, it's not a Zoom background. This is the top, actually halfway up the mountain here at Steamboat Springs. I'm playing hooky today with my daughter. She took a little mental health day and I was happy to oblige. So I'm teaching her about how to be an entrepreneur in the 8th grade.
I love it. And I don't know if this is I don't even know grammar that well. I don't know if this is a verb, adjective. I'm not even sure what it's called, but you were gondoling, maybe?
on the gondola.
5 minutes late in my episode because you were gondoling.
Well, I asked for the fast car, but they put me in the slow one. My bad.
Oh man. All right. Well, one thing you should know about Nick is, we send over a questionnaire. You get some really good details about what we can talk about on the show. And Nick, in true entrepreneur fashion, said, I don't have time for that. I don't follow the rules. You're like, Ben, you know who I am. And so the good thing is we don't have to wing it because I've known Nick for over a decade. I know like every little detail about him. So we're going to have a fun time talking about being married and running a business, just based on what I know about Nick. And then I'm going to ask him some questions to get to know him a little bit better. Tell me where you...
To be fair, Ben, let me just clarify. Your producer sent me the questions. I was wildly impressed because of all the podcasts I've been on, like less than 1% actually send pre-questionnaires. And so I was impressed by that. But then it went to like 15 questions. And then I forwarded it to you and said, hey, bro, like for real, like I got stuff to do. And then you copied the producer on the email back to me. And you said, just answer 3. And I still don't think I answered 3, but that's cool. We're here today.
Well, you'd appreciate knowing that Steven, my producer, also is an entrepreneur, exited his business over 10 years ago, moved from Kansas to Paris, France, lived there the last 10 years, and then just moved back into the States. And so he's dealt with people like you, Nick. Like he knows.
Okay, good.
There's no hope, man. Right, I'm not going to get this guy to fill out the form.
All right, perfect. Love it.
All right. Well, give me the origin story of you and Angela's meeting, and I'm always asking this question too. Like, did you disclose that you were a little crazy in the head as an entrepreneur, like what she was getting herself into, or maybe you didn't even know that yet? Give us the origin story.
Yeah, I didn't know it at that time. I tell you, the reason I know that there is a God is because I was hanging out in San Diego, California, playing baseball, and he gave me a scholarship to go to Arkansas. And I landed in Arkansas in August, and it was 127 degrees, and everybody had funny haircuts and funny accents and gun racks in the back of their trucks. And I was like, what in the world? And I hated it for 6 months because I left San Diego. And then 6 months in, I met my wife who was at school there. And I fell madly in love with her. She was a junior, I was a freshman. And like a true entrepreneur who doesn't follow rules, she was everything on campus. Everybody wanted to date her. She was like exactly who you want to marry, and somehow convinced her to take a date with me, and the rest is history. But like, God had to get me out of San Diego to Arkansas to meet her, and he did. And so that's how I met her. And I don't think I knew how crazy I was at that time. Looking back, in all seriousness though, I came from a real broken family, and she came from a real stable family. And I know part of the main reason I was attracted to her was because her stability. And because her family was so stable and didn't have a lot of adventures, she was really attracted to me because it was like, oh, wow, this sounds like a lot of fun. And our marriage counselors often have to remind us that the thing that we fell in love with often, when we were early on in our relationship, often is the thing that annoys us in our marriage. And so we have to remind ourselves that like my free will and wanting to do fun things is what she originally fell in love with, and her stability, which drives me nuts at times, is what I fell in love with. So that's how we met. We met in a little school called Harding University in Arkansas, and it's the greatest gift God's ever given me.
That's amazing. So you were exuding I'm unstable energy out there that just pulled her in.
Yeah, for a good time, call Nick.
That's right.
She found my number in a bathroom or something. I don't know.
We think that about our middle son. Like we said early on with him, we're like, he's going to be the kid that's smushing beer cans like on his forehead.
Yeah.
Like we're just certain of it.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
sounds like you got a little bit of that in you.
as long as he calls you and he's doing it, you know you've won as a dad.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so is she involved or has she been involved? I know you sold your business, talked about it on season 1. Was she ever involved intimately in any of your businesses that you owned or operated?
She was involved intimately in this from a macro perspective, from a people perspective, and a relationship perspective. She was not involved operationally. I don't know that I'd probably be a lot better entrepreneur if she was. And she is operationally in our family a lot more like a COO, and probably would be great at it. But honestly, I don't know if we'd be married if we did a business together. But she was my confidant that I could come home to and be like, hey, so this happened. What do you think about this? Do you think I should hire this person? Do you think I should fire this person? Like, she just had a really good sense she had almost like a sixth sense of people. So in some respects, she wasn't involved in the day-to-day, but she was the most important confidant, if you will, in my business.
So did you think of her as kind of a tool to help you see your blind spots, or like recognize your blind spots, like fill in the gaps, like strategic advisor type? Or was it just this thing is crazy, can you like weigh in here, help me out? How did that?
It was more of the latter, Ben. I mean, I wish I could say I was self-aware enough to know that I needed to ask for help. But candidly, as we discussed in the first season, like, I had so much pride that I didn't want to ask for help. So when I came to her, it was often in a fire drill. I would have probably saved a lot of pain for me and for others had I asked her earlier on. And that's something I had to learn. And quite frankly, when we sold that business, which has now been about, I think it's been about 7 years now. I mean, it's been a long time. I took a year off to do hard work on myself. And one of it was marriage counseling. And part of the reason I did that was because, she told me at that time, we had been married about 18 years at that time. We've been married 25 and a half years now. She said, babe, I love you, but I don't like you anymore. Like, I don't know the man. You're not the man that I married. And she was right. And I was filling myself up with worldly pursuits, and I was getting accolades from all the things that were temporary. And I loved it because it scratched an itch of like, you're finally important. You're finally wanted. You're finally needed, right? Was my deep down daddy issues, quite frankly. And she's like, man, that's just like not who you are. And it was really confusing to me. It was a cognitive dissonance because I was like, no, don't you see my article in the New York Times? Like, I'm important. And she's like, pick your underwear off the floor. Like, I don't care. So in some respects, she was the best thing in the world because she probably saved me she absolutely saved me from a very precipitous fall of what would have been me skiing with my kids, but because I'm separated, because I'm sharing weekends with them, right? Which is the path we were on. And I was just really thankful that she was able to step up because she's strong as an ox when she needs to be. And she did that for me.
Looking back, would you, knowing her superpowers and just the value that she added with you, just maybe dumping things on her telling you, hey, you're off track. Looking back, would you have put her in a formal role in the company? Would you put her maybe in a formal or informal role as an advisor of like, I should have met with her once a week, or I should have asked her for advice and hiring, specific parts of the business?
Yeah.
If you could do it all over again?
Yeah. I don't know if I would have made it formal just because I don't like formal roles, but
Clearly, sir. But I can't fill out a form. Got that.
But I certainly would have come to her a lot quicker. with questions. I would have been a lot more curious. I think that's the thing that I'm learning in my old age is like the best leaders are curious. The people who walk into it. When I walk into a room and I assume there's somebody in there that knows something I don't know, I go to bed smarter than when I woke up that morning. And for so much of my life, I just assumed I was wrong, but I assumed I was the smartest person in the room. That's my pride, my favorite sin of all. And so I would have asked her a lot more. I would have been a lot more proactive. Instead of, hey, can you bail me out of this fire? It would have been like, hey, do you think I should get in this relationship with this person? Do you think we should take on, we had investors that were just, it's always the smallest investors are the loudest and the biggest pain in the butts. And, she would have been like, if you'd asked me, I would have said, don't take their money. Like, don't do it. And she was right. Or don't hire that employee or fire that employee when you need to. So, I think every couple's a little bit different. You need to find what works for you. But here's the main thing is like, there needs to be an ongoing, regular lane of communication, period. And then have a segment of that in your business. And to an extent, I have clients, Ben, I do coaching now. I have clients whose spouses don't want to touch the business with a 10-foot pole. And I'll go interview them. I'll do a 360 on my client. I'll interview the spouse. And boy, they have deep, deep insight into that person. And so I go back to my client and say, you got to involve your wife. And they'll say, well, or your husband. And they'll say, she doesn't know the first thing about XYZ industry. I'm like, yeah, but she knows the first thing about you. And she can tell when things are going well or when things aren't going well. Or he can say the same thing. And I just highly encourage it. I don't think you can find a better partner than a spouse who knows you well, who's willing to tell you the truth.
I agree. I've got a spouse that tells me the truth all the time.
I mean, yeah, Lauren's a spitfire. She's a truth teller. I love her for that. Yeah. You just know what you're going to get with her, and I love her for that. And I know you're a better entrepreneur because of it.
100%. Better person, better husband, better dad, better overall. Okay, so this idea of regular communication, consistent, does that mean you're a proponent of like, do you do weekly date nights? Do you recommend anything to your clients at Nick Kennedy Coaching to stay connected?
Yeah. Regular date nights are key. I think that is absolutely key. You got to get away from the kids. You got to get away from the dogs, and you got to get away from I'm catching my daughter in the background. She's like, what? You got to get away from me? My daughter's sitting right here. I got to get away from you, Jane. Sorry. Yeah. Because we were a thing before she was, and we'll be a thing after she's gone. And our job is to nurture her so that she can go out and be the best person she can go be. But yeah, date nights are and they should be fun. Like, life doesn't have to be hard. There should be fun things that you should go do. So, most people do a Thursday night date night. Go have a margarita, or if you don't drink, go have a Coke or whatever. But go for a walk. We walk all the time. I mean, we are just walking, and the things that come out. And there's something, Ben, about walking that you don't get when you're sitting. There's a rhythm to your body, and the left brain, right brain that happens when you walk, that actually causes you to say things that you wouldn't otherwise say. Walkings are great ways to do that. Skiing. Find a hobby that you guys do together. And yeah, those are all great things. I think the main thing is put yourself in a position where you can hear what needs to be said to you. Because if someone says, like, I'm a great coach, but I can only coach people who are coachable. Like, same two people, one who doesn't want to be coached is going to get a horrible experience with me doing the exact same thing with someone who's willing to be coached. And so as a spouse, you got to put yourself in that position of like, they can help me. How can I listen to them? What do I need to hear? That posture of going into that relationship with her or with him is so important. And they'll just save you pain.
Yeah, absolutely. You just reminded me too of a basketball game my son played last week where I could hear the coach yelling, I can't coach this. I can't coach this. I can do so many things, but like I can't get out. I can't make you run. Yeah. I can't make you want the ball and all of that. Speaking of coaching, you have an insight that other people that I've interviewed do not have, and that you're peering into marriages. You're interviewing the spouse. So these are business owners who are married. You're talking to the spouse. Yeah. any common, I mean, you could probably talk for hours on this. So let me think about honing in, but maybe a common theme or a common way people get to the breaking point, like where it's like, this is over, it's done, I can't do anything else, and trying to recover from that. Are there any commonalities there that lead down to that? So if we're trying to catch people, some of these listeners that may be heading down the wrong path, like you don't know it's about to really end in like the car crash is ahead of you.
Yeah.
Anything that you've seen as a coach that has led into those dire situations?
Yeah. I mean, I think it all begins and ends with your identity. If your identity is your business, if your identity is your title, if your identity is your achievement or your bank account or your degree or whatever it is, you're in for a really rough patch potentially, because those all can be taken from you. And and I think, you know, your spouse is designed to be. I heard it said this one way, which I thought was beautiful. They said, you know, I hear a lot of kids today talk about, why should I get married? It's just a piece of paper. We've been living together for years. And the reality is, marriage is not a piece of paper. It's a sacred commitment before God in which you two enter into the cauldron of life. And you say, I'm going to bring my best self. And you say, you're going to bring your best self. And you can't get out of that cauldron. And that refinement of being in that cauldron together as spouses, as partners, as life partners, is actually what makes you a better person, right? Because if you can't get out, you're forced to deal with your own issues. And so why I say identity matters is because we become so attached to this idea that if I make the sale, if I get on this newspaper, if I, whatever your number is, if you get that, everything's going to be okay. The reality is, if you're a bastard and poor, you're going to be a bastard and rich. And if you're selfish before you go to Harvard, you're going to be selfish after you go to Harvard. And if you're like if you don't do that work, and so I think just understanding who you are. And for me, I'm a Christian, and so for me, my beginning and end starts with, I'm a child of God. And when I wake up in the morning and I say that to myself, and I write that in my journal, as I've done for the last 7 years, every single day, it grounds me to go, you know what? Everything's going to be okay today. And I don't have to worry about tomorrow, and I'm going to forget about yesterday, and I'm going to be focused on today. And it grounds me into like, okay, I've got something bigger than myself. And I think that's the same thing in any relationship, is who do you see yourself as? And if your spouse, if you see yourself as a CEO and your spouse says, hey, this isn't working for me and the kids, the travel, the debt, all the things that we do to make the business work, if it's not working for you and you go, I got to choose, this is how I was. I got to choose, you mean I got to choose between my identity as a CEO and being your husband? Like, that's my choice? Like, that's Sophie's choice, man. That's the hardest thing ever. If your identity is in your title. So I just say to all founders out there, all entrepreneurs out there, man, get really clear on what your identity is, because no one's going to talk about you're going to live 30,000 days on this earth. 10 of them will be spoken about in your obituary, and probably not your work is going to be spoken about in any of those 10 things. Mm-hmm. So I think you get really clear on that, and that helps a lot.
You know, it made me think this past couple of weeks, like Lauren and I got in this fight, and I had this realization, like, because your mind, I think when things get really bad, you can fantasize about, well, if, you know, she was gone, or if I was divorced, then I could do this and this and this, and everything would be fine, right? As long as she's not here anymore. And that was not the realization I had. It was the exact opposite. It was this thing called marriage, like, that's not going anywhere. Yeah. And I just like reminded myself, like, that thing can't be changed. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just set that aside, like, because I made a commitment. And then everything else needs to change besides that. So just don't even like let my mind get there. And that was helpful for me to just visualize of that being, that's going to stay put. I'm not even going to touch that.
Oh, I love that, Ben. That's your foundation. And I know the background that, you know, without going into too much, the background both of you have. Yeah. Like, you and Lauren are breaking generational curses.
Yes.
And that's all you can do. Like, you're going to screw up your kids somehow. Just don't screw them up the way your parents screwed you guys up, right? Like, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And you're doing
Yeah.
that by saying, hey, divorce is not an option in this situation. And that's not to say there aren't reasons for divorces. There are reasons for divorces. But the fact that, your business should not be one of the reasons that gets in the way of that. And I love that you said
Yeah.
that mindset change is huge. Just take that up. Just take
Well,
that off the table.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. I have a dear friend of mine. You may know him. We can talk offline, but he is dying of cancer right now, of pancreatic cancer. And they gave him a 2% chance to live for 2 years. And here's the entrepreneur mindset. He's like, great, we got 2%. Like, because he feels like he's defied, which he has as entrepreneurs. We've defied so many odds.
Yeah.
Like, you think about just running a business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and being married during that time and having children and not getting divorced. Like, we're in this smaller and smaller category of people, right? Top 1%, 0.1, I don't know what it is. But just staying married, you're already in the minority. So like entrepreneurs like to shatter goals, do things that other people can't do or aren't doing. Being married and staying married is what most people are not doing.
Yeah.
So if like, maybe that's enticing to you as an entrepreneur. Like, you want to
something.
be like everybody else?
Yeah.
Every entrepreneur is going to go, no, I'm not like everybody else. Okay, well then stay married.
Stay married.
Like,
Yeah, I love that, Ben. I think I love that. 2% chance? Great. So you're saying I got a chance, right? Like,
that's right.
Every entrepreneur is like, oh, sweet, I'm winning.
That's right.
Here's my best piece of advice. So I talk to a lot of folks who are successful, but they've given all of their career and they're like, should I get married? Should I not get married? And my advice is get as married as young as you can. And for one reason, and that is you're creating stories together. Mm-hmm. And the longer you're married, the better the stories get, because you just have you're building bricks and bricks and bricks on a wall, and pretty soon that wall becomes impenetrable. And they go, well, how do I know if it's the right person? And here's my bottom line. My bottom line is, are they kind? Like, are they a kind person? Because if they're a kind person, you can put up with a lot of things that maybe aren't going your way. But if they're kind, like, it'll work out. But if they're not kind, it doesn't matter. They have all the right genes and all the right pedigree and all the right whatever. Like, if they're not kind, it's going to be a messy situation. So if you're out there listening, like, is this the right person or not? If they're kind, yeah, go freaking make a decision and get it done. And if they're not kind, make a decision and get out of that and go find somebody else. Because
no one wants to live with a mean person the rest of their life.
No, and I want someone on my 6, Ben. Like, I want to be like, I screwed up so bad. I don't know what ended up, and I want to come home and my wife to be like, yeah, you screwed up, but I'm still here for you. Like, if I got friends who are close like that, but like a spouse who's like, I got you. Let's not do this again, but I'm here for you. And I get to do that for her, and that's a relationship. I mean, all we are meat bags, right? We're just meat bags with a central nervous system. And then we've got this part of us, this is a soul that connects. It says, I've got a thought up here, and I'm going to say it through my mouth. You're going to hear it, translate it through your ears. Everybody's going to translate this and go, I'm hearing one thing or another thing, right? Like, that connection piece is the highest order of good. It's the highest level of what we can do, is connect with another human being. And that's why entrepreneurship is so cool. It's because you get to connect with human beings. You get to create new ways to connect with human beings through products and services and those type of things. And I think having a spouse that's kind, that you can communicate well, that has your 6, and you get to have theirs. I mean, it's like hitting the lottery. It's going IPO 17 different times. It's the best thing in the world.
I totally agree. We're going to take a quick commercial break here. But Nick, I want you to think about a question that you should have answered on the questionnaire that you didn't fill out. And so you'll have a minute to think about this. Anything learned in your marriage through all of your work, counseling, just being married, whatever, that you brought into business, or anything you learned in business through counseling, coaching, just running a business that you then applied into your marriage. So you can take that, any way you want, but I want to know that a little bit about that crossover.
Okay.
In just a minute. So we're going to talk about thegentstore.com. You have not purchased anything at thegentstore.com yet, but you're going to want to, Nick. So thegentstore.com just launched a few months ago.
How do you know I haven't purchased anything there?
I look at every single order on Shopify.
Oh, okay. Okay. As soon as I get off the mountain, I'm buying something today.
Yeah. So, and we've had hundreds and hundreds of people order, and your name's not on there.
All right. I'll fix
Um,
that.
but it is an amazing site. Over 3,000 items for gentlemen to shop. Luxury leather bags. Coffee is on there. You could buy a vehicle. We're going to start selling motorcycles on there pretty soon from Janus Motorcycles. It's going to be amazing. But 20% of your purchases actually go back into an annual membership credit at the Gents Place. We're the first to do it in our industry. It's absolutely incredible. So thegentstore.com. And if you use code Untrapped, you'll get free shipping. Again, you can shop to your heart's delight. Nick, you can, if you need something more than the free shipping, if I need to throw you a credit or something, then I'll do that. But you will certainly find something on there. And Dan LeBrod's Velvet Athletics pickleball paddles will be on there shortly.
Nice.
So if nothing else, you can go buy one of his pickleball paddles and support both of us.
Love it. I'll do that.
Okay, and wrapping up here, last question or two around crossover. Anything that you've taken from one and applied to the other, business versus the marriage?
Yeah. The thing I've taken away is that there is no crossover. Like, you're one person, and the extent you try to separate the two is energy that's wasted. And what I've learned, and it took me a lot of years to figure out, is that my hurts and hangups in my personal life flowed into and flow into my business life. My passions and pursuits in my business life flow into my personal life. And I've stopped trying to break the two apart. I do not want anybody to be surprised that knows me on Sunday morning at church or what I do on Tuesday afternoon in my business. I do not want anybody to be surprised. I want to be fully integrated. I want what I want to look like 20 years from now to match what I'm doing today. So my advice is, don't try to separate the two. Be one person. Know who you are. Figure out the pain that you've been given, right? And go crush that pain. Like, you're uniquely suited to go endure pain that other people aren't. Well, as soon as you find that, you find freedom. And I think that that's the same thing in business and in life and in personal life. And so I don't think that there is a crossover other than to say, be the same damn person on Saturday that you are on Monday. And if you do that, it becomes really easy, because now you've got all this energy you kept up trying to keep up appearances that now can be better spent on creativity, creation, doing the right thing. And I have found that life is just a lot easier when you're that way. And like, I cuss a little too much for people in my church, and I talk about Jesus a little bit for too much for people who don't go to church with me. It's just kind of who I am, right? And I think that is important, to be the same person, whoever you are. So I would say, don't have a crossover. That's my answer to that question.
Well, good. And you and I both know that people that curse are smarter. They are the most intelligent beings on this earth. There's studies. I've read them. There's statistics out there.
Send those my way, would you? I need
just
those
look
studies.
it up, guys. Take my word for it. So, I know one of the answers is get Nick Kennedy coaching, but if you just had an elevator ride up with someone that's struggling with being their most authentic self, they feel like they're, an imposter, or they're putting on a mask, or they're trying to pretend to keep up with the Joneses, anything like that. Any quick tips here as we wrap up on how to do that? If you had an elevator ride and you had a minute or two to share with someone, I know it's not that simple, but I like to challenge you because you're the world's greatest coach, sir. So help me out if we're on an elevator.
Most entrepreneurs deal with shame. They use shame as a motivator. And so the question I would ask is, who was the first person that taught you shame? Go back to that moment in time where they said you weren't worthy and you're not okay and you don't belong. Start there. And often that's before we're 18 years old, probably before we're 10 years old. Somebody said something probably offhand that sunk deep into your core, and that's been your closest companion ever since. And until you give your trauma words, let me put it another way, if you do not give your trauma words, it will come out sideways in your body. People wonder about people who are sickly or whatever, like, that's trauma that hasn't come out. You've got to give words to your trauma. And it doesn't have to be a coach or a psychologist. It has to be, it just, you've got to give words to it. If you don't give words to it, it will manifest itself physically in your body. And I do have studies to back that up. And it will result in horrible situations for you physically. So that's the question I would say is, if you're dealing with shame, if you deal with greed, if you deal with anger, who is the person that taught you that? That,
Yeah, because you weren't born. You weren't born with it. It came from somewhere.
someone taught you that. Someone modeled that for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you can have that freedom, like everything starts to open up. It's like taking the red pill and you go, oh, I see the world a whole other way. You give words to your trauma and life changes for you dramatically. And this is coming from a guy who could barely spell therapist or trauma, not too long ago. I'm telling you, it's life changing to do the work on yourself, and you can just be free.
Yeah, I love that. Well, for those of you that missed season 1 with Nick Kennedy, I want you to go back because we didn't dive into all of his business accomplishments, but there are many out there, including starting an airline, selling an airline, starting a coaching practice at Nick Kennedy Coaching. That's I know several people that are clients of yours and rave about you. But go back and watch season 1 with Nick. Nick, if people like what you're saying here, which there's a chance that nobody liked what you said, just so you know, and you're okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
But in the chance that they liked it, where can they find you online? I don't know if you're on Twitter anymore. I know you've got a website.
Yeah, just go to nickkennedycoaching.com. I've got all sorts of free resources out there, free books, free teachings, books, list of books, just all sorts of free stuff. Lots of good pictures of me photoshopped that are my best side. And if you like it and you like coaching, I do these things called Kennedy Adventure Experiences. We can come up to, we have a home in Dallas, but we also have a home in Steamboat Springs. So you can come up and, I've got my skis down here. I'm ready to go. You can come up and we can do work and ski at the same time. Like, how great is that? Or snowmobile or hike or do any of these kind of things. Like my goal is real simple. Like if I get to work with you, I want you to have a before Nick and a post Nick experience. Not because I'm great, but because you're ready to make some positive changes for your life.
Well, as a family, we've had a pre-Nick and post-Nick experience with my wife going through coaching with you. And so I'm grateful for that. And I thank you for pouring into her and pouring into our family by proxy.
It's an honor and a privilege.
Hey, man, have a safe trip, a fun trip down the slopes. Thanks for joining me again. I'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
See you, Ben.
All right, man. See ya.
Bye-bye.